Welcome everyone to our webinar, Solving Your Top EDI Challenges, presented to you by Tallan and our friends at BizTalk 360. Hi, I'm Stan Kennedy, Integration Practice Director and T-Connect Product Owner at Tallan. Joining me today is Srini Mahindrakar, Technical Lead at BizTalk 360. And we're super excited to share some of the information that we have, ideas and solutions around BizTalk in regards to EDI. So let's get going. So here's our agenda. Congratulations, we've already made it through number 1. So we're going to continue on EDI challenges with BizTalk. We're going to discuss some of those challenges, and then we're going to talk about how the solutions that we're bringing both from Tallan and BizTalk 360 can help solve those challenges. And then we'll wrap that up. Hopefully we'll have some time for some interactive questions. If you have a question, go ahead and type it in the message area, and we'll try to cover those. If not, we'll definitely respond shortly after with some of those answers. So to get us out of the gate, here's a couple of interesting quotes I'd like to share with you guys. The healthcare EDI market is expected to grow at a compound rate of 8.1% over the next 5 years, valued at $3.77 billion by 2022. The industry standard for EDI transaction error rates is around 3%. So when each error can cost anywhere from $50 to $300, those errors can really add up quick. Okay, today we're going to discuss 2 products that can make your life significantly better with BizTalk when you're working with EDI, and that's Tallan's T-Connect EDI Management Suite and BizTalk 360. Let's talk about some of the challenges. Now, while BizTalk is an excellent integration platform, over many years and hundreds of projects at Tallan, we've seen a successful integration platform, and it does some great things out there in the industries. So we're super confident with the platforms. Where we have seen some challenges is really around some of the complex EDI transactions that typically you may encounter. Some of those challenges we've sort of enumerated here, so let's kind of get through some of these here. Cost of remediation. Errors with EDI require significant rework. Identifying, editing, and reprocessing can be labor intensive and costly. So if you think about an example around this, if you're processing EDI, and let's say you have an error, a structural error or a SNP1 error, the first thing you'll do is you'll go to the event viewer. You'll see, it's typically a sort of a cryptic error. It gives you sort of the segment. It gives you sort of a general location of the error within the EDI message. And then you'll open up the admin console for BizTalk. You'll search for the suspended messages. You'll open up that suspended message, and then you'll copy and paste the body of that into something like Notepad. Where there you're essentially going through the editing process of trying to fix your EDI message, and then you'll ultimately save that file, resubmit it back on the on-ramp or receive location, and reprocess. Now, even that one cycle can be very labor intensive, but a lot of times with the standard BizTalk pipeline component, it only gives you a certain number of errors at a time, depending on where that error in that segment is. So it doesn't really give you a full snapshot of every single validation, and sometimes that's a very iterative process, and obviously that's going to be a ton of labor for your BizTalk administrators and developers. Another area is slow processing, and when you think about how BizTalk works, it's all XML under the hood. And the great thing about BizTalk is as it's processing a message payload, it has durable messaging capabilities. In other words, it's persisting that message multiple times in case, for example, the system experiences a catastrophic error. You can literally bring the server back up and resume all of your messages because it essentially persisted that along the way. So that's great, but when you couple that with large EDI X12 files, so if you think about an ANSI EDI file, it's a pretty small footprint, the EDI itself, but very large EDI files such as 834 enrollments or any of the 837 claims or inventory files, when that's parsed into XML, it's a significant payload, and it really can bring BizTalk down to its knees. Now, there's all kinds of different patterns where you can sort of like split it, work around it, reduce the number of persistent points throughout the process. You know, we've all done that, and you know, we have some pretty interesting patterns to get around that. But what you end up really doing is really fighting against the product because it's really not set up to handle that type of processing. We also have a challenge of no transparency, where BizTalk really limits all of the EDI data that you're viewing within the files, right? So yeah, you get some context properties, you have sort of file profile information and all the metadata that goes with it. But in a robust EDI shop, you're really going to need every single data segment and information that's being processed. BizTalk tends to be transient in nature. In other words, it's picking it up and delivering it to a subscriber. And so when you're doing robust and complicated EDI, that can be definitely a challenge. We've also seen where limited in its simplicity, and what we mean by that is, for example, the BizTalk maps, or it's in healthcare SNP levels 1 and 2. In non-healthcare, it would be essentially your implementation partner, training partner guides, your structural validations, and those type of things. Basic validation, BizTalk does pretty well. Basic mapping, it does fine. But whenever you go outside of that simple sort of integration, again, you start to end up with maps that are super complicated, hard to troubleshoot. Sometimes you end up just supporting a large XSLT file, for example, instead of the map itself because it's so complicated. And nobody wants to maintain an XSLT file, no matter how good you are at XSLT. That's not a fun job. So, you know, that's definitely something. And then, you know, some of the healthcare organizations that we worked with that are in the Medicaid business, when you have to send, for example, encounters to the state or federal agencies, for example, for reimbursement on encounters, there's all kinds of rules and elevated SNP levels that you have to implement there too. So it gets complicated super fast, and you end up building where the product is really working against you. We've also, another challenge is obviously the management dependency. You know, due to its self-service EDI management capabilities, if anyone's doing EDI on BizTalk, who is typically the one that's doing the EDI remediation? Well, the answer is the BizTalk developer or the BizTalk administrator, right? And they're typically not especially, you know, a lot of times they're not super deep in EDI. They're very aware of EDI, but you know, they're going to need the business and the EDI specialists and the claim specialists and the enrollment. They're going to need their help in order to get this thing processed. So the operations of processing EDI tends to fall on the shoulders of BizTalk support personnel, which obviously they should be spending their time somewhere else, you know, creating new applications and administrating the servers. So at Tallan, you know, our TConnect, our whole thing is we want to bring innovation. So just about every platform out there, and we worked with a lot of different EDI platforms, they're all doing it the same way. And so we wanted to take technology and innovation and address, some of the challenges that we just covered. And we did that through, establishing some architectural pillars with our product and some things that we really wanted to achieve while building the solution. So to answer some of the problems and the challenges, let's kind of go through how a possible solution with T-Connect could work. So lower EDI and remediation time. One of the things with T-Connect is we actually save all the data as it's being processed in the database. And so now you can use our portals, you can do some quick smart searching of claim IDs, order IDs, and you can quickly get to the message. You can identify the error, you can edit it right from the screen and resubmit it on the fly. So one of the things we wanted to do is be able to quickly interact, identify, and remediate that EDI message. Another big thing that we brought innovation to EDI is we created from the ground up an EDI parsing engine that we feel by far there's nothing else in the industry that can compare to this as far as speed, the flexibility, as well as its robust first pass sort of validation capabilities. And we spent a lot of time in R&D. We built this from the ground up, and the performance of this is something like 500,000 transactions. So you can think of 500,000 claims or 500,000 items in under 10 minutes, and that includes persisting it to a database as well as routing it to the destination system, whether that's a adjudication system or an ERP system or a transportation management system, whatever that destination is. And by the way, this number here is actually running on a laptop, single thread, single process, hosted in a single VM. So we're pretty proud about this stat. We also have visibility. We're bringing visibility back into EDI. So, the flow of your EDI processing, being able to access that data and interact with it, for example, with executive dashboards, being able to interact directly with the database, or interact through our application or user interface as well. So this is a big key for us as well, is bringing visibility into your processing. Another thing that we'd like to do is obviously extending the capabilities. Again, just basic integration and basic mapping is fine, but when you get to anything above that, so for example, claims balancing, SNP level 3s, or you want to gate your validation process for a trading partner at the beginning, and you want custom rules. All those things you can start to, you'll need something like T-Connect to really do that, do it well. And T-Connect is really .NET based, so anyone that can do .NET or from a developer perspective or SQL Server, it's very easy to work with. And then finally, non-IT EDI management. And really what this means is, because now we've surfaced the processes, the EDI flows, and the EDI messages within our portal and dashboards, now the business can interact with the EDI as well. So now the business can go in, they can remediate the EDI file directly. So this really, gets the BizTalk developer and the administrator sort of out of the EDI support role, which is huge. So T-Connect is an EDI management suite, an innovative solution that eliminates lost revenue to EDI administration costs for healthcare, supply chain, and retail workflows. We do that by increasing invisibility, enhance speed, improve compliance, and reduce administration. Now, T-Connect is a standalone EDI management solution. It doesn't need BizTalk, for example. But what we've developed, because we had so much as a company at Tallan and our professional services, we've been working with BizTalk since the very beginning. So, we knew it when it was COVAS, and we knew it when it was, new to the EDI scene. We've walked down the BizTalk EDI path for many years, so we know this very well. And we know those challenges, and obviously we had some unique integration patterns to solve those challenges before we had T-Connect. And so what we wanted to do was bring T-Connect and build it into a HIPAA accelerator for BizTalk. And the most simplest way to think about this is we're actually created a BizTalk pipeline component that can plug right in. You'll get all the databases, the portals, and the dashboard and all that installs, and it just works with BizTalk natively. And so we'll be able to then do some of those things. So for example, advanced enrichments and modify that EDI. If you can do it with the map, or you can do it with just simple class, C# class .NET code. Very simple to work with, because we've created some simple APIs to work with that. And I mentioned about the data. We also have a complete data storage. It stores every single piece of segment, field, enumerated value, the schema. We have all that out of the box, including the structural validation, SNP 1 and 2 in the healthcare out of the box. So the whole persistence to data is really the key to this, right? We've got to be able to have that data accessible at any point and at any stage. And then obviously our Power BI dashboards and our portal allows you to be able to interact with that data as well. And then we have various tools such as the file splitter that can work with BizTalk. We also have an enrollment differentiator and many more. So there's a lot of things that we can do with T-Connect to help fill those gaps. And then finally, it works with the BizTalk acknowledgement, so the 999s and the 997s, and then also able to produce 277 CAs. All of that just works out of the box. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple of screens here. Now on the left, data ownership, and this is really about data ownership and providing access to that EDI. You can see here on the left where we've implemented a pipeline component within BizTalk. And so you can see here that we have our pipeline component installed. It's a simple configuration. You can essentially say enable EDI insert equals true. Set a few configurations, and all of a sudden, you get the power of T-Connect working on top of a robust integration platform like BizTalk. On the right, these are some of our tables. I think what I'm showing here is an 837P or professional claim. What's interesting is we have pre-built APIs to interact with that data, whether you're calling, doing some type of service call, or you're working with our pre-built store procedures. This is an example of a pre-built store procedures where you can just execute the store procedure, get a claim ID, and actually produce the EDI from a data set. So this is essentially the EDI message line by line in a record. And this is very helpful if you need flexibility with working with your EDI data. So for example, if you had to ETL this data to another system, whether that's a claim adjudication system or whether that's an ERP or transportation management, whatever that system is, now you have the data at hand and easily ETL or move data between your back-end systems. So this is also helpful though if you want to outbound straight from the database, and so a quick query will give you that EDI message as well. So that's just one example. Now with data ownership, now you can interact with the data. We have some pre-built dashboards out of the box, and obviously the data's there. And with the Power BI tools, it's really easy to build some robust capabilities around executive dashboards and being able to monitor some of your flows. We're super excited about some new ones that we're coming out with to basically correlate different data, whether it's claims and remittances to inbound orders and outbound invoices and ASNs. So once you have the data, then you really have the power at your fingertips. Here's an example of our EDI portal within T-Connect. And this is just one of the screens. Obviously there's some smart searching capabilities. You can quickly put in a claim ID or any one of the fields and pull that up. And then from there, in this particular screen, you can see that there's an itinerary where the EDI, in this case it's 837 claim, went through a few stages, right? So you can see that a transaction was inbounded, it was validated, it actually had a structural error in this case. You had an acknowledgement created, you did an eligibility lookup, sent for claims processing, and then adjudication. So in this example, we can kind of see every state. And what's interesting about this is we actually store the EDI in its entirety in a database at each one of these states. Now, if you had to work with an EDI message, I gave you the example of how you would do that in BizTalk, and obviously that's a long cycle, right, a remediation cycle. With this, you simply just click and you can edit it right here in line, the EDI message, or you can pull it down into one of our tools, which we call X12 Studio. Now, X12 Studio uses our same engine, and this will pop right up from the portal. Here you can view the EDI message in a hierarchical way, and right away you can see the validation results. You can double click on that and it brings you right to the error. So unlike BizTalk, where you look in the event viewer and you sort of have to decode, decipher, and do some archaeology, right, to figure out how to get to that error. This takes you right to it. And what's really cool about this tool is you can click on this, and if there are enumerated values, for example, it'll actually be a drop down and you can select that. Once you select that, it'll in real time do validation to let you know that the file is now valid according to your implementation guide. Now, you have a couple options. Once you do that, you can save it out, or you can just resubmit. And what happens when you resubmit is it actually, you'll see another stage in the itinerary pop up here, so you know that it was processed successfully. So, great tool. This runs off of our T-Connect platform, and it really gives you access to those messages, real time, edit, resubmit on the fly. Now, there's a couple of patterns. You may be asking, okay, between BizTalk and T-Connect and also BizTalk 360, what's the right pattern? Well, with BizTalk, one of the other problems with BizTalk is with BizTalk there's about 50 ways of doing something. There's probably 2 ways it should be done, right? So sometimes we engage with new customers and it's been an implementation that's not quite right, and sometimes the product gets a black eye from that. There's definitely flexibility here, and there's definitely some integration patterns that this works very well with. In this example, what I'm demonstrating or illustrating here is the green is all BizTalk components. So this is what you would typically see if you were deploying an EDI solution. The blue is T-Connect and how it plugs into BizTalk. So here you can see that this is a BizTalk pipeline, and you can see that we plugged in our pipeline components as part of that. So everybody on this call that knows BizTalk is quite familiar with plugging in pipeline components. Super easy. And then from there, obviously you have T-Connect on the side, and you also have BizTalk 360 as well. So it's going to be monitoring anything that's coming through the typical management, the BizTalk management database, as well as BAM. So let's kind of walk through this scenario. In this scenario, I would use this pattern, for example, if I had a really large file, maybe super complicated business rules, this was not the simple integration, right? This is something that's super complex, but you want very easy API and way to manage it. So first of all, we'll have an X12 file. We'll use a typical BizTalk receive port, just like you would any other application. And we would plug in EDI. When it picks up that EDI file, it's going to use the Tallan's T-Connect EDI parsing engine, right? Not the standard BizTalk X12. It's going to parse that super fast, and it's going to, you can go through different stages here where you can run custom rules against the object model. You can also perform any kind of SNPs, level 1s and 2s, and for those in non-healthcare, this would be essentially the implementation companion guide edits. Then you can do custom enrichment code, as well as finally persisting that into the database. Now what's interesting about this is it actually, when it goes through the validation, it'll use BizTalk's send port and acknowledgement for 999s to send that out. So again, leveraging BizTalk where it works super well, and in this case we're really leveraging the parsing power and the flexibility and ease of working with objects as opposed to very complex maps, for example. Okay, I'll flip this a couple times and you'll see the difference. In this example, it may be an existing integration EDI process that you have, and maybe you want to plug in persistence either in the beginning or in this case the end. So in this case you would use the standard BizTalk X12 parsing or the pipeline, and then everything would sort of work as normal here. And that way you can start to leverage some of the BizTalk 360 EDI monitoring capabilities that Srini will talk about. And BizTalk 360 is definitely one of those applications and tool sets that we're recommending just about every single one of our BizTalk clients, just because of its operations monitoring and analytics capabilities on top of BizTalk. So Srini will, I won't steal any Srini's thunder here, but he's going to walk you through some of that. But this is a great example of just plugging in T-Connect, getting to the data, so this increases your transparency, and now you can actually work with that through some of the tools that I've showed you earlier. So I'd like to finish out my, my portion of the presentation here with a case study, a client study more recently that we implemented T-Connect, health plan that American Postal Workers Union, and then really the challenge was claims, remediation. They were implementing QNext, TriZetto QNext adjudication system, and they needed some help improving their first pass adjudication by improving their EDI processing. And so T-Connect was really able to give them that transparency, the speed, and really reduce the operations without all the complex, mapping and everything else that could happen with BizTalk. So that's one of the scenarios there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Srini, if you're ready. And at the end of this, we'll, Srini and I will, if we have time, we'll take questions. But obviously, if you guys want a demo, just let us know, and we'll prepare a custom demo for you.
Okay, thank you very much, Stan. Hi everyone, I'm Srini Mahendrakar. I'm a technical lead at BizTalk 360. From Stan's presentation, we kind of know now that my BizTalk server is can be an integral part of Tallan's T-Connect EDI solution, and he also explained about a couple of patterns where BizTalk's capabilities to process the messages can be utilized into the solution. So when you have a BizTalk in the back end, and when you have BizTalk implementation, you do need to have a powerful tool to monitor and perform some day-to-day operations, and also to get some insights from the platform. So BizTalk 360 is a market-leading software platform for your operational monitoring and analytical needs for the BizTalk environments. So the BizTalk is basically very powerful platform for the processing the messages. It's a very strong integration engine, but it do pose some challenges with respect to monitoring and supporting their solutions. And some of the core challenges which pretty much every BizTalk implementation faces are listed down in the slides. I will explain them one by one. Um, Supporting any BizTalk environment do require a skilled BizTalk professional to handle the support. If you are expecting already existing team to come and support your BizTalk environment, it pretty much can get challenging for you, and it get complicated most of the times. So that mainly because the people who are supporting the BizTalk do need to have very strong understanding of the BizTalk as well as the solutions behind it. The another main challenge is the security and the auditing. BizTalk relies on few groups, security groups, and since the operating group is very restrictive, people end up getting an administrative privilege on your environment. And once they have the admin privilege, then they can really mess around with your system. On top of that, BizTalk doesn't have a built-in auditing capability that kind of becomes very challenging in order to have a control over what's happening in your system. And as you know, in order to support your BizTalk environment, you do need to access various things. So the one is BizTalk admin console, but on top of that, you need to open up the BAM portal, the ESP portal, the performance counters, so on and so forth. So since you need to switch between all these tools, and as Stan was mentioning, there are various ways of doing the things. So but really you need to do them in a couple of ways. So there is no one productivity tool to handle all these things. That is one of the biggest challenge which BizTalk implementations faced. And with respect to monitoring and notification, as you know, BizTalk server doesn't have any built-in capabilities for monitoring and notification needs. But Microsoft do used to recommend SCOM, but it has got its own challenges. So the people who are supporting the environment, they need to be experts with SCOM as well as with BizTalk. Finding that combination is really challenging from the resourcing point of view. And so far, the BizTalk was treated as a black box. Though the BizTalk collects the data at various places, you might have seen the tracking data, BAM, suspended messages, so on and so forth. It does collect a lot of data, but we don't have a proper mechanism to extract that data and display it to the users in a way that it really makes sense to you. These are really some of the challenges which pretty much all the BizTalk environments are facing today. So BizTalk 360 is solving all these challenges and bringing real usability to the support professionals. How it does is through its three main pillars. So the operations, monitoring, and analytics. So what you are seeing on the screen is a slide which kind of showing you the operational dashboard. On the left hand side, you can see the various menu items such as the dashboards, application support, the rules, data access, ESP portal, EDI, health check tools, the security, infrastructure settings, so on and so forth. So what does it really mean to you? If you didn't had this BizTalk 360 tool, you would have switching around all these items at various places. For example, business rules, you need to open the business rule composer. For the ESB, you need to open the ESB portal. So for health check tools, you need to open the BHM and the performance counter, so on and so forth. But what we are doing, we are bringing everything into one operational dashboard. That's what you are seeing on the screen here. And the dashboard is something is completely widget based, based on our experience and customers' feedback on what they really use on their day-to-day basis. We already have pre-built widgets. It's pretty easy for you. You can bring all the widgets onto the operational dashboard. We touched upon the user access security policies. That was one of the challenges which BizTalk poses to us. So here we have three characters. So the Tom is a BizTalk guru. Obviously, he do need access to all the applications. He's like a super user, and he does a lot of things, but he know what he's doing. So it's fine to give him the admin privileges. But think about John, who only need to support the HR related application. Think about Claire, who need to support the finance related applications. They don't need to have access to all the applications, and they really don't know what they are doing if they really start looking into the other applications. So in that case, we really want to restrict them to those specific applications. That is not possible in BizTalk Admin Console with the level of security it provides to us today. So what BizTalk 360 does is it provides you highly granular control over the security policies. You can clearly define who can have access to which application. Also, it can go to very granular level to an extent that you can assign individual feature to individual person. You can probably assign whether a person will be able to view my BAM portal, whether a person will be able to resubmit the messages, whether he can view the messages. So it goes to very granular level, and it gives a pretty much full control to the super user to assign the roles and create the users and provide them appropriate security. On top of that, we have a very good auditing capability where any actions performed on your BizTalk environment through users in BizTalk 360 will be audited, and it will be available for you any point of time. So one of the important aspects of BizTalk 360 is its ability to monitor various aspects of BizTalk, basically. So BizTalk has got the receive locations, the ports, orchestrations, the hosts, and name all those artifacts from to the various events occurring in your BizTalk environment. You will be able to monitor them. For example, the suspended messages, the failed messages, so on and so forth. So you will be able to quickly, we always say this, within 5 minutes of installation of BizTalk 360, you will be able to start monitoring your artifacts in your BizTalk environment. Once you start monitoring all of them, you will get a very good looking dashboard. You can see here, it's a hierarchical, and all the errors will boil up from the bottom. If there is a problem at the receive location, it will go up and it will show you which exact application you have got a problem. Generally, the people use this dashboard in a large screen in front of a IT support group. So that kind of most used feature of the BizTalk 360 is monitoring. Today's session is webinar is focused on EDI, and we did a couple of patterns where BizTalk CDA processing capabilities can be used along with Tallan's T-Connect software. So BizTalk 360 also brings in all the reports by default provided by the BizTalk admin console, and all the data is actually stored in BAM. So we brought all those reporting, but on top of that, we did see some of the problems with those reports. For example, if you have a interchange and you are sending out, when you are sending it out to your trading partner, the trading partner can send the functional acknowledgements for every transaction set, and they can be they can come together in one transaction set, or they can come separately. So when they come, when there are multiple functional acknowledgements for a interchange and one of them fail, in BizTalk admin console, there is no way to go and look for an interchange for which one or more negative acknowledgements are received. So especially the functional acknowledgements, it does provide you an option to look for technical acknowledgement failures, but there is no way you can find out the interchanges which are kind of failed for functional acknowledgement. So that was a gap that we filled in our recent EDI enhancements for the BizTalk 360. So we created a brand new query type called functional ack status, which kind of aggregates the status of all the functional acknowledgements and displays against a interchange. And on top of that, it provides the all the filtering capability that you can go. You can filter based on the trading partners, the sending IDs, and the direction, so on and so forth. So we for the EDI, we have another very strong feature called data monitoring. Any of your EDA solutions will have the locations that they are obviously receiving invoices or the orders or something else. It all related to money, isn't it? So you do expect certain amount of volume in those locations or send ports. So the BizTalk location is working fine. Assume a scenario where location is working fine, the hosts are working fine, and everything is fine with the BizTalk environment. But you see that for more than an hour, you are not able to receive any messages. Of course, from a BizTalk point of view, everything is fine. But as a business, there is some problem. So you do have to escalate this kind of non-event in BizTalk to a higher level, and really need to ask the people, other group people, that there is some problem. They're not able to receive any messages. So it might be a network issue, or the folder itself is not populated from our upstream system. It can be anything. So those kind of events can be monitored in BizTalk 360, and also we have capability to monitor status of interchanges, status of transaction sets, the functional acknowledgements, and all this, even the AS2 MDN reports can be monitored using the data monitoring capability. When you create the data monitoring alarms, as and when they trigger, we are going to display you the trigger of those events in a calendar view, and in that calendar view you will be able to see the thresholds at the time of the breach and since it is in a calendar view, it is a good indication for you also to see how many times this event has occurred per day or per month basis. So this is a strong measure of how well your solution is processing the messages. So on top of the data monitoring dashboard, we also, when we use the BizTalk as a pure EDA solution, and at least some part of it with the Tallan, we do, if the messages are flowing through the BizTalk EDA components, they do log a lot of events to the BAM portal, and all those can be, we are bringing them into very rich dashboards as well. So that kind of gives you insights into the number of transactions processed per a partner, or failed messages, and so on and so forth. So with that, I would like to bring to your notice that BizTalk 360 is being used by more than 500 businesses in more than 26 countries, and currently protecting over 2,500 BizTalk environments. We are kind of proud of the fact that BizTalk 360 is being used by Microsoft's supply chain team to kind of monitor around 16 BizTalk environments, which handle over 250 million messages per day. They did face the challenges that we described at the beginning. Before they used to use SCORM as their monitoring tool, and they did face problem with the need of specialized people who understand both SCORM as well as BizTalk. And the SCORM was kind of generating a lot of false alerts. They were not able to distinguish between the real alerts and the false alerts. So that inability really frustrated them, and when they tried BizTalk 360, and it really worked perfectly for them, and they kind of use BizTalk 360 as a centralized monitoring tool for the artifacts for their data monitoring needs. And BizTalk 360 has got a feature wherein it goes and auto corrects the artifact status. For example, for some reason, if your location or an orchestration goes down and you are expecting the state to be enabled all the time, then you can set that autocorrect configuration in BizTalk 360, and it intelligently goes and gets it to the state expected without any manual intervention. So that is one of the key feature which Microsoft is using. And they got a rich dashboard as well with the BizTalk 360. Now the team is able to keep an eye on their 16 BizTalk server groups using a centralized monitoring tool. So what happened as a result, they used to take around 4 hours to generate a report for the monitoring report, but now the BizTalk 360 kind of automatically generates for them. That saved a lot of effort and money for Microsoft. So we do receive very good feedback from various customers. Our customers love our product, and we have a very good support team which works across the geography and supports at various time zones. And you can see off the bat, the UI is seamless and modern. The custom notification channels, system monitoring is great. Some of these are the feedbacks which we receive in G2 Crowd. I welcome all of you to visit our G2 Crowd site and try to understand the feedback that the customer has given us. And we are really proud of the fact that many of the customers love our product, and they cherish using it on day-to-day basis. So with this, I think we are now open for any question and answer. So you probably, yeah.
Sorry, Srini. There was one question. Stan, I think it was directed towards you. It came in as, do you have API and pipeline components for each EDI format, or only for the specific few known formats?
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Sam. That's a good question. We actually have, if you're talking about the formats, I mean, we have it for all the different transaction sets in the different formats, such as, you know, if you have to do 4010, 5010, 5030, whatever that is, as well as, you know, supporting all those different transaction sets. So the answer is yes, we support all those.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for your time. We will get some follow-up communications out to you. If you do want to reach out to either Stan or Srini, their emails are up on your screen, so please feel free to reach out to them with any additional questions, or if you would like to request a personalized demo. Thank you again for your time, and have a great day.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Yep. Thank you everyone. Thank you.